Part 3. The Giants. But if you were so nice and friendly, Sophie said, then why did you snatch me from my bed and run away from me? "'Cause you saw me," the big friendly giant answered. "If anyone has seen a giant, he or she has taken away Hipswitch." "Why?" asked Sophie. "Well, first of all," said the BFG, "human beings is not really believing in giants, is they? Human beings is not thinking we exist." "I do," Sophie said. "Oh, that's only because you have seen me," cried the BFG. "I cannot simply allow anyone, even little girls, to be seeing me and staying at home. The first thing you would be doing, you would be scuttling around yodeling the news that you were actually seeing a giant. Then a great giant hunt, a mighty giant look-see, would be starting all over the world, with the human beings all rummaging for the great giant you saw and getting wildly excited. People would be coming rushing and bushing after me with God knows what, and they would be catching me and locking me into a cage to be stared at. They'd be putting me into the zoo or the bunkin' house with all those squiggly hippo dumplings and crocodile-dillies." Sophie knew that what the giant said was true. If any person were reported actually having seen a giant haunting the streets of a town at night, there would most certainly be a terrific hullabaloo across the world. "I will bet you," the BFG went on, "that you would have been splashing in the news all over the wonky world, wouldn't you, if I hadn't wiggled you away?" "I suppose I would," Sophie said. "That would never do," said the BFG. "So what will happen to me now?" Sophie asked. "If you does go back, you're telling the world. Most likely on the telly bumpkin box and the radio squeaker. So you will have to be staying here with me for the rest of your life." "Oh no!" cried Sophie. "Oh yes," said the BFG. "I'm warning you not ever to go whiffing about with this cave without I is with you, or you will be to an uckety-muckety end. I is showing you now who is going to eat you up if you ever catch even one tiny little glimpse of me." The big friendly giant picked Sophie off the table and carried her to the cave entrance. He rolled the huge stone aside to one side and said, "Peep out there, little girl. Tell me what you have seen." Sophie, sitting on the BFG's hand, peeped out of the cave. The sun was now up and shining fiery hot over the great yellow wasteland with blue rocks and dead trees. "Is you seeing them?" Sophie squinted through the glare of the sun and saw tremendous tall figures moving around the rocks about 500 yards away. 3 or 4 others were sitting quite motionless on the rocks themselves. "This is giant country," the BFG said. "Those is all giants, every one." It was a brain-boggling sight. The giants were all naked except for a sort of short skirt around their waists, and their skins were burned brown by the sun. But it was the sheer size of each one of them that boggled Sophie's mind most of all. They were simply colossal. Far taller and wider than the great friendly giant upon whose hand was now sitting. And oh, how ugly they were. Many of them had large bellies. All of them had long arms and big feet. They were too far away for their faces to be seen clearly, and perhaps that was a good thing. "What on earth are they doing?" Sophie asked. "Nothing," said the BFG. "They are moochling and foochling around and waiting for the night to come. Then they will be galloping off to places where people is living to find their suppers." "You mean to Turkey?" Sophie asked. Bone-crunching giant will be galloping to Turkey." "Of course," said the BFG, "but the others will be whiffling off to all sorts of flung-away places like Wellington for the booty flavor and Panama for the hatty taste. Every giant is having his very own hunting ground." Do they ever go to England? Often. They say the English is tasting ever so much like Krodskalop. I'm not sure I quite know what that means. Meanings is not important. I cannot be right all the time. Quite often I is in left instead of right. And are all those beastly giants over there really going off again tonight to eat people? All of them is guzzling human beings every night. All of them except me. That is why you will be coming to an uckety-muckety end if any of them should ever be getting any gogglers upon you. You would be walloped up like a piece of frumpkin pie, all up in one dollop. But eating people's horrible, Sophie screamed. It's terrifying. It's terrible. It's frightful. Why doesn't anyone stop them? And who, please, is going to stop them? Couldn't you, said Sophie. Never in a pig's whistle, cried the BFG. All those man-eating giants is enormous and very fierce. They are at least 2 times my wideness and double my royal highness. Twice as high as you, cried Sophie. Easily that. You have seen them in the distance, but just you wait till you get them up close. Those giants is all at least 50 feet tall with huge muscles and cockles alive, oh. I is the titchy one, I is the runt, I is 24 feet in the bare feets. 24 feet in puddle nuts in giant country. You mustn't feel bad about that, Sophie said. I think you were just great. Why, even your toes must be as big as sausages. Bigger, the BFG said, looking pleased. They is as big as bumplehammers. Whoa, how many giants are there out there right now? 9 altogether, answered the BFG. That means that somewhere in the world, every single night, 9 wretched people get carried away and eaten alive. More. It is all depending, you see, on how big the human beings is. Japanese beans is very small, so a giant will need to gobble up about 6 Japanese before it is feeling full up. Others, like Norwegian people and Yankee Doodles, is ever so much bigger, and usually 2 or 3 of those makes a good tuck-in. But do those disgusting giants go to every single country in the world? All countries except Greece is getting visited sometimes or another. The country which the giants visit is depending on how he is feeling. If it is very warm weather and the giant is feeling hot as a sizzle pan, he will probably go galloping far up to the Frisbee north to get himself an Esquimau or 2 to cool him down. A nice fat Esquimau is a giant, is like a lovely ice cream lolly to you. I'll take your word for it. And then again, if it is a frosty night and the giant is frigiding with cold, he will probably point his nose towards the sweltering hotlands to gather a few Hottentoties to warm him up. How perfectly terrible. Nothing hots a cold giant like a hot Hottentotty. If you were to put me down on the ground, and I was to walk out among them right now, would they really eat me up? Like a whipswittle, cried the BFG, and what is more, you is so small they wouldn't even have to chew you. The first one to be seen, you would pick you up in his fingers and take you down like a drop of water. Let's go back inside, Sophie said. I hate even watching them.